Hello and welcome back to your Pennsylvania Dutch Minute. I got a viewer request and it was marked urgent, so I jumped right at it. Now, the topic we're going to talk about today is something that I think I've addressed in other videos, but maybe I wasn't clear, or maybe it just needs a little bit more attention, and that's fine. It's a question that does come up a lot, and I saw a conversation happening on Facebook not too long ago in regards to this topic, so hopefully I can give a little bit more information from my perspective on the question. The question revolves around the dreaded letter W and how it's pronounced in Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, before I get into my little spiel here today, I want to make one thing very clear. There are many regional variations of Pennsylvania Dutch, whether it's difference in vocabularies, difference in pronunciation of words, and, talking about what we're talking about today, how a certain letter is pronounced, it really does depend on where you are. And I noticed that in some of these Facebook groups, which is really great because they bring a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch speakers together and get the opportunity to talk with each other and practice Pennsylvania Dutch and communicate. A lot of times, if you are, someone that only grew up and was exposed to the Pennsylvania Dutch of southeastern PA, like I was, for example, and, you never came into contact from someone who's from the Midwest that has their regional difference of Pennsylvania Dutch, you don't really realize that there are differences. And to be honest, up until a couple years ago, I had very little contact with people, with Pennsylvania Dutch speakers outside of my area. But as the internet has grown and as I've been involved in some of these other Facebook groups and so forth, I am coming into much more contact with people in Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Ontario, Canada. And I'm quickly realizing that there are more differences than I thought there were. So the answer I'm going to give today is truly the answer from my perspective and the Pennsylvania Dutch that I spoke, or that I speak, that I grew up learning and hearing in northern Berks County, Pennsylvania, southeastern PA. If you're someone in Indiana or Illinois or Ohio watching this, you might hear what I say and you might say to yourself, well, that isn't what the Amish family down the road from me says. You're right. There probably are differences. The one key thing that I think we need to always remember is that even though there are these regional differences, for the most part, the differences are not too great that we can't communicate with each other. We can communicate with each other. And if the way I say my letter W, for example, is different from maybe what somebody in Michigan says or what somebody in Ontario says, it's not going to change the meaning of the word. It shouldn't anyway. And yeah, maybe someone might say, what did you say? How did you say that? Well, you just explain, So again, I want to be very clear that the answer I'm about to give is for the Pennsylvania Dutch that I grew up speaking. Again, if you have Amish or Mennonite neighbors and you live in the Midwest, maybe they say their letter W differently than I do. That's okay. So just so we're all clear about that, there is no right or wrong answer. And I don't ever want anybody to get so afraid of saying a letter the wrong way that it stops them from saying it and practicing and speaking. Speaking a foreign language, learning a foreign language, whether it's French or Pennsylvania Dutch, the key is that you have to speak. You have to be willing to practice, and you cannot let the fear of making mistakes stop you from practicing. Otherwise, you will never get any better. And then, you're going to become mute, and that's not good either. So I want to make that very clear as we start. Now, again, here's my answer in regards to the Pennsylvania Dutch that I grew up in speaking and hearing in northern Berks County. So let's look at this dreaded letter W. So, of course, it's written the same way, so we can at least say that. There's no difference in how we physically write it. If you've studied German, standard German in high school or college or, at any point in your life, you will know that in standard German, a W is pronounced like a V. Now think about how the typical American makes that sound. We put our front teeth, our top teeth on our bottom lip, making that friction V, and then we let the air out, right? V. And of course an English W is very different. It's W. There's no teeth touching the lips in an English W. Water. Window. We wouldn't say vindo or water, yeah? So we got to remember that. And if you've only studied German, then that's the W in your mind. You probably think, well, if I'm studying Pennsylvania Dutch, they're going to say the same thing. And in some regional variations, they do. They do make a more harder V sound. Thinking about putting the teeth touching that bottom lip. Very, for example, Vader, Wasser, V, thinking of these three, thinking of W words in Pennsylvania Dutch. The Pennsylvania Dutch that I grew up, the regional variation, whatever you want to call it, where I grew up, is kind of like it's hard to explain, honestly. It's almost like a hybrid between a German W, the V, and an English W, the W. I was thinking about this before I turned the camera on. If we take the word W-I-E, like in the question, wie bist, how are you? A phrase that a lot of us know. When I go to make that initial W sound, for me, in my regional difference, it's I'm bringing my teeth down like I'm gonna make a V, but I don't actually let them touch, and then I go more like an American W out or an English W out. Wie bist. Now that's really hard to explain, and maybe if we were sitting in a classroom, you could see my jaw move and my lips move. Of course, in Corona times, you couldn't get too close to me, right? But that's the best way I can explain it. Wie. It's like I'm trying to make that the sound, but I'm not committing all the way. Maybe you could think of it like a lazy V sound, maybe if that helps you. It's not a right-out W, like in English, but it's also, for me, it's not a standard German V either. It's somewhere in between. Now, again, there are people and regional differences that exist where you're going to have people make that very hard V sound. I don't know if there's anybody out there speaking Pennsylvania Dutch that makes a pure English sound, like a W. Maybe there are, but again, don't let that stop you. And if somebody tells you that isn't the way you pronounce your W's, well, what are we going to say? They're going to understand you. So I chose 3 things to look at, and we can practice our W's. Let's look here, the question wie bist, which means how are you? The word for water in Pennsylvania Dutch, and I went with one as many W's as I could think of. Where does Walter live? So again, listen closely, try and mimic what I'm doing. Again, like you want to go for the V, but then I back off a little bit. Wie bist, Wasser, wo wohnt der Walter, wo wohnt der Walter. Now, if this was standard German, break a minute. Standard German, it would be wie bist, Wasser, wo wohnt der Walter. But in the Pennsylvania Dutch that I grew up speaking and hearing, no one would have been that V sound. But again, maybe in other parts of the country where Pennsylvania Dutch is spoken among other groups, that exists. So don't let that stop you. Again, what I just went over was what I heard growing up. That doesn't mean it's the right way. It means it is a way. Okay? And you might run into speakers that make more of a hard V sound. That's okay. Don't let them tell you you're wrong. Well, you can let them tell you they're wrong, but you just keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch, okay? Where this gets people always have a little bit of a hang up maybe is they look at the letter W, and then they think to themselves, well, what about the letter V? What's the deal with that? Don't get these mixed up, because the letter V in Pennsylvania Dutch always makes an F sound. F, like in English, like in the word for or friend. Your teeth are touching your lip again, you're pushing air through. For. Friend. That's the letter V. I chose 3 V words. The word vier, which means the number 4. Voorouderen, which is ancestors or people that came before you. And verkaufen, which means to sell. So again, I'm making an F sound, not an English V sound. It's not vier, voorouderen, verkaufen. It's an F sound. Vier, voorouderen, verkaufen. Okay? So, W's and V's. A quick video. It's probably not as quick. I kept talking a lot. The key is I want you to remember is if you're making mistakes, that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. That means you're trying. Remember that. You're trying, and I want you to keep trying. This is your halftime speech. I'm the coach. We're in the locker room. You made some mistakes. Okay, let's go out there and do better in the second half, right? That's what I need you to do. Don't ever stop practicing, and don't ever let somebody tell you that, you're terribly wrong or make you feel like you shouldn't try anymore. There are people like that out there. I know that. You find them on the internet, you find them in real life. Don't let their criticisms of you practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch, speaking your Pennsylvania Dutch, stop you from doing it. You keep doing it. Get a little better each and every day, okay? I hope that helps a little bit today. W's and V's, they are tricky, but again, I want you trying. I don't want you worrying so much about making it perfect. Make the mistakes, get better, grow from it, okay? Don't let that fear of making a mistake debilitate you, okay? That's my words of advice for you guys today with your W's and V's. If you have a question for a future video, email me. I'll do a video on it. I'll answer your questions, or at least try to answer your questions, or I'll ask somebody that could answer your questions for you. If you'd like to support the channel and all we do, of course, I have a link down below in the show notes for the Buy Me a Coffee link. Feel free. All money raised there goes towards the support of the channel. Again, if you have an idea for a future video, email me. My email address is at the end. Subscribe and like the YouTube channel if you haven't. That means every time I get a new video posted, you'll get a notification and you can come and check it out. Until next time, keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch. Don't let anybody put you down. Keep practicing and mock scoot.
Mock